Good Monday evening, everybody. How you doing? I'm Manny Vitale, host of My Fighter War and co-host of Music and Mayhem with Skylar Ray. And it's that time. And look at that. We are right on time. It is 7:08 Eastern time in Detroit. And I've always said that I am always prompt. So that's why I never say 7 p.m. exactly. We always advertise 7-ish.
Mm-hmm. And there's the ish.
So there you go. Someone referred to us as the Ish family. We're the Ish family.
Okay.
But welcome to another Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And boy, usually I tell you what, in my years past by now, I would be on my second or third wind. Probably passed out, woke up for round 2 and 3 by now. But now it's a little less of that, you would say, but still celebrating St. Patrick's Day,
That's
but
right.
without all the
Sober
extras. So let's pop OG in here. Say hello. There's OG.
There I am. Hi, guys.
And as you guys already know, that
I got my pen ready. I'm going to be writing things down.
Yeah, and also
Yes.
Skylar, just so you know, that the multi-purpose Rolodex is not only for it doesn't only
Rolodex.
look for numbers and all that, it holds her phone.
Yes.
So
Skylar was laughing at
you
me about the
youngins
old
wouldn't know
school
what a
Rolodex. It was the
is.
last one.
Yeah, so that's a
at the
Rolodex.
store.
But so we're gonna pop OG out of here now.
Okay. See ya.
And today we got a special guest. Keith Waller is a good friend of mine, known for years. He is a close friend of also a gym rat over at Powerhouse Gym that we all train at together. We've got our family. It's like the breakfast club in the morning, and me and Keith and all of us people who are a little more seasoned compare all of our injuries, and he's got them just, oh my God. We sit here, it's like, how's your back? Good. How's your back? But Keith brings a lot to the table. He is a retired police officer, and he is still very active in the community, helping with the alcohol awareness program, as well as teaching at the academy. Also does a lot of missionary work. I believe it's in Haiti, and just amazing stuff. Just goes to show you the character and the type of person that Keith is, devoting himself as someone to protect and serve for all these years, and then to continue doing that with his work, with helping others. So let's bring Keith in. There he is. Hey, Keith. How is that for an intro?
That was great. Thank you.
Oh man! And as soon as I saw you again, I love his shirt. Oh, I keep forgetting when you look at this. Right is left, left is right.
Yeah.
But thanks for popping on, brother. I appreciate it. And I was giving an update on just a little background on you, and with your background, man, you've gone through a lot. You've seen a lot, and for those of you, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and where you're from, and then we'll jump into your history.
All right. Well, I was actually born in the city of East Detroit when it was called East Detroit. And then, and then when my mom became pregnant with the 9th child, I am the second oldest of 9. We moved out. Yep. We had to move out to Warren over in Common, Hoover area. And that's where I ended up graduating from high school, from Warren Cosno. I was very athletic. I played in sports, but school wasn't my thing there for a while. And I had 2 uncles that were police officers. One was in Detroit and one was in Grosse Pointe.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And so in 11th grade, I did a term paper on the law enforcement career, and I got an itch for it. And so back in the 70s, you couldn't become a cop until you were 21, right? Due to the federal rules. So I had a cousin who talked me into going into the Army military police. And he said, hey, you'll get 3 years in the Army, get some experience. And when you get out, you'll have your GI Bill. So if you don't like police work, you can go get a degree and whatever you want to do.
Smart.
And so that is the way I went. And I did 3 years in the military police. I got out in October of 78. And that led me into searching for a job where within 10 months, I was hired by the city of Roseville. So I was 22 years old, was married and had 2 children. And I started to have a craving for education then, because there was so much in that job and learning from the military. And so I put myself back through school through the GI Bill, graduated with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Wayne State University.
All right.
Yep. All the while I was doing midnight shift at Roseville PD. I did 21 straight years of the midnight shift.
Whoa.
Yes.
That's insane.
Back in the day, Roseville was probably considered the biggest bar town through the 70s, 80s, and the 90s.
Oh.
Right?
Mhm.
And they had the big place at Fraser and Gratiot changed names.
Oh my God.
Yep. Rare
main-
Cherry, the
Main act, the
Yes.
Ritz.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Ritz.
I mean, from what I hear,
Yeah. So, anyways, that they changed names a lot, but bands, Eminem, I think, was there, and
Yeah.
Heaven's Wish and Kid Rock back in the right when they were all trying to get their start, are all our local
Mhm.
Detroit artists. So that was a huge facility. It held up to 1,500 people, and so
Wow.
every weekend, I only had one weekend off every 6 weeks when I first started my job, and so being on the midnight shift, I was either breaking up fights at the bars or I was out policing a very serious car accident on Gratiot, Groesbeck, 696 or I-94, right? So we were a busy traffic community. So I saw my share, probably my guess, over 100 fatal car crashes in my 21 years that I had to help process the scene, notify parents, family members of a deceased loved one. And even today, I think that's probably the toughest thing that I really went through is having to do death notifications. Those,
yeah. Keith, that's just recapping here on your past, because as soon as you were talking about from the high school on, I kept looking at OG over here, go, what? That sounds familiar. When you were saying, the whole high school thing really wasn't for me. I'm like, I went there. I went to high school to play hockey and chase girls. That's why I went there. But then when you said about your family, one Detroit, one Grosse Pointe, same thing. I always, and it was about writing a paper. I had to write a paper and said, what do you want to do by the time you were a senior, 21, 25 years old?
Yeah.
And so when I was 21, or my senior year, I wanted to be captain of the hockey team. And I got that. And then it said after that, I wanted to be a police officer / EMT. And so same thing. And then like with you as well, I've had two uncles who were with Detroit police.
Yeah.
And but it was funny, Keith, because when I jumped into my career with Detroit police, the family was just like, you crazy? What the hell's wrong with you? And I went, okay, you wait till Uncle Rich and all them, when my uncles, they'll be proud of me. Well, when I told them, they were like, what are you, stupid?
Yeah.
They go, didn't you see what we went through? But because we've known each other a long time. But I did not know the 9, one of 9.
Oh yeah.
And then 21 years working midnights.
Yes.
And the Ritz main act / the Rare Cherry and all that.
Yeah.
I turned 21, and I can't remember if it was the Rich, what main act, whatever it was back then.
Yep.
But it was quarter night. And quarter beers for these little plastic cups of whatever. It was supposed to be beer.
Right.
And oh my God. And Keith is not lying. I mean, I'm here as far as your shift. I mean, working that area, for people who don't know, Gratiot, Groesbeck, it's supposed to be 35, but you're leaving the bars and expressways right there. What a great way for a crime and then just flee. So unbelievable. But so
I was involved in a lot of high-speed chases because the roads led back into Detroit, and of course Gratiot north of 13, there was the entrance ramps to I-94s there. So they would come into the Macomb County area, northern Macomb, steal their cars, steal their tires, right? And they would come down Gratiot to be able to get back on the expressway, right, and flee into Detroit. Same thing. Groesbeck went right straight down. cross 8 Mile, and you would be into Detroit. So we dealt with a lot of that type of crime, very quick hit type stuff
Yes.
that would head into Detroit. Mm-hmm.
And that was, it's like, plus then you have 696 blasting right
Yes.
through there too. So you had the main,
Yes.
thoroughfares there.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
hearing you say about the notifications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know when the first time I had to do it, I was working in the ER dealing with it. And I remember the first time being with the doctors when they informed the loved one. And it was my first time. And I remember just not knowing what to expect because I didn't know. I mean, okay, you see it on TV. Oh, I hate to tell you this, but this is real life. And I remember walking into the room, and of course, the door opens, we walk in, and everyone stands up and they're just like this. And it's like I hate this. As soon as you say, I'm sorry, as soon as you say that, man, it just explodes.
Exactly.
And I just remember that first time it was like having my heart ripped out when you hear that scream. And I'm sure you've heard it many times.
Oh,
You
yeah.
hear that death scream. Like if you go to a scene, someone shot, stabbed, dead, laying there, and then the loved ones come and they come charging into the scene to see them. But so
and
all
part of that thing that made it so tough was that, those are the types of things in that loss of life that there was no need for it, right? It was accident. It was lack of whatever respect or thinking about, hey, what may or possibly could happen. And knowing that it was preventable, that's what made it hard. When you went there to tell somebody, it's like you're telling them something and they thought their loved one was out for a little bit and was going to be back and they're not coming home anymore,
Yeah, we had a friend of ours, Richard Hastings, a lawyer on from when we were in our studio in New York. And he was talking about all the cases he was involved in with drunk drivings, deaths, serious injuries. And he said something to me. He goes, people say it was a drunk driving accident. It was terrible. He goes, there was no accident. He goes, an accident occurs when maybe your tire blows and you lose control or a deer runs out and it causes an accident, something like that. A drunk driving is a choice that you made and exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Someone made a conscious or delirious choice. And it's just something that happens and you don't think of it at the time. And here, so you were 20. So how long you were with Roseville? How many years?
33.
Wow, God bless you, man. 33 years. And, some of the stuff is, I know back in the late 80s, 90s, we didn't have that fentanyl and everything that's happening now, but it was still there. I mean, you were still seeing quite a bit of it. What was it in Roseville? Because I know that they nicknamed the heroin highway with the buses coming up and down Gratiot.
Gratiot Avenue. Heroin and crack. That was thing? They would go down and they would so as the criminals got a little smarter, because we would start going in and seizing property, right? When you would do the drug raids and you would seize property under federal forfeiture, seizing vehicles, seizing houses, whatever it was, right? To help use that money to fight crime. Well, they started getting a little smarter. And so they would take the bus up and have their drugs so that nothing could be seized. So that's how it got that nickname. You're right.
The heroin highway.
Wow.
Right now, I've just shared this out here with the rest of our.
Okay, as a civilian, I've never heard that.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I've never heard that line. And I grew up right in Detroit, 2 blocks south of East Point. So I'm in the neighborhood. Yep, never.
Oh yeah, and I talked to some individuals, and they said that was their job. I mean, they would get on and they would run it from past like Mount Elliott down. Turn around and take it all the way into almost like the 16-mile area, turn back around and just run the buses. And like you said, they got away with doing it that way.
Wow.
So, I've had people talking about the drugs and how drugs are drugs, which is true. And I
Yeah.
had a guest on saying, well, Manny, back when we were younger, we didn't have these other issues. Well, yeah, but still,
Yeah.
and, you know, we were also talking about drugs and addiction and abuse, how it has no, it doesn't care. Addiction doesn't
No.
care who you are, what race you are. There's no
Crosses
discrimination.
all lines.
Everyone.
Mhm.
And as you and I both know, that we know people who have made the wrong decisions, who have also worn a badge, and it just
Yes.
goes to show you the temptation gets you, man. And I God bless you, and all of us have worn the uniform for being out there, and it still goes to show you, because I've had people that talk about first responders and the high rate of alcoholism, and I've seen it with my guys that I worked with in Detroit and in general, with a heavy amount of drinking to help cope. Have you had issues with that with the people that you were close to, or as far as officers that were having
Yes.
like issue with PTSD and all of that?
Well, the drinking, and that was, I started in 1979.
Mhm.
And like, today, St. Patty's Day, if I would have, worked
Mhm.
midnights last night to this morning, 40 years ago, I probably would have been at the bar at 8:05 having green beer, right?
I would have been
Yeah.
with you.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
The midnight shift guys probably would have, went and did that. And I guess one of the things that helped me, that I was never really a big beer drinker, but I was using my GI Bill to get my degree. So I was on midnight shift, and then I'd get off at 8 o'clock. I would sleep a few hours. I'd get up, I'd do homework, and then I would go down to Wayne State from like 6 to 10. And then I'd come back home, and my shift started at midnight. So I'd either maybe catch a half-hour nap. So those were the things that kept me busy for 6 years. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have ended up being at the bar a little bit more than what I usually did.
Oh yeah.
Kept you out of trouble.
Well,
right?
the thing is,
So
that
family,
is-
taking care of.
up.
Yep. And so over the
There we go.
What's that?
Oh,
It froze
we
up for a
froze
second.
up a little bit,
Oh,
here,
That's
but we're
okay.
back. We're back.
Okay. And so, over the years, I watched friends after 20 years of plus marriage, get divorced because of how do you handle that stress? We didn't have really places to go to back then. You had to sort of rely on yourself for that support, in law enforcement. You just, and so forth. So I watched some friends, get divorced 20, 25 years later because the drinking became an issue. I saw where, like myself, I had 7 surgeries from my career, from fighting with people, getting drugged by cars and stuff like that, trying to make arrests. And I watched others do the same thing, knee injuries, shoulder injuries. And of course, through the Vicodin pain pills, they began to become addicted to that. And that would affect their career. And some, they ended up being charged and or terminated because of that addiction, because of the stress that comes with, the law enforcement, as you know.
Yes, it was. I remember when I came on for Detroit. I remember my first day. It was Detroit, crazy. My first run was a gun run. We're driving down the street, and I'm the jump man. First day out of the academy. Here I am driving around, and this guy runs between 2 houses, running with a gun. They're like, "Vitale, get him!" Huh? you couldn't start me with a traffic ticket.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Welcome to Detroit." So, anyways, the adrenaline's pumping and all that, and I come home, and the girl I was seeing at the time, when I got home, I'm all full of piss and vinegar. I'm like, "Oh my God, it was a gun run." Then we got in this fight, and the guy pulled a knife, and I'm going on and on and on. And all of a sudden, she goes, "Stop!" And she goes, "I don't want to hear this." And I was like, "But this was my first day." And she actually got teary-eyed, and she actually said, "I didn't sign up for this." And and we kind of laughed about it a little bit. But as time went on and things got a little more intense, it did become an issue. And a lot of the guys that I worked with, some of them succumbed to, like you said, the things you see from all day, these shifts, you're dealing with tragedy, you're dealing with very unpleasant situations. You come home and our loved ones don't want to hear about it because they're afraid.
Yeah.
So what do? We self-medicate and we go to where our peers are so we can express.
We're going to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when that happened, and the same as you, I had guys who just lost their careers. I mean, it was sad, but now that the help is there, but it's still just
right. And then I don't know if you've heard of the word black humor, right?
Oh yeah.
Black humor is the way that, cops in their, sometimes there's a lot of terrible jokes in regards to maybe that very crazy call, the death of a person, but that's a way that they would begin to cope. So you'd hear the black humor when you would, go to the so-called choir practices, right? To vent. Because like you said, your family didn't want to hear, and you didn't want to put that on your family either. Right.
Exactly.
Same thing with trauma nurses, just said what worked at Receiving ZR. They also have very awful humor.
Oh, the things that we would make comments and these jokes and around each other, and then sometimes civilians would hear. And I've had many times where it was just like, man, and I was just like, listen, we are not disrespecting the person, the family, the event. This is just our way of kind of breaking the ice of trying to, because all of a sudden you're at a scene, you pull out and this guy's head's literally blown off. And then you got his mother grieving at her 16-year-old son who's laying there obliterated. And then all this is going on. And then you're calming that down, your radio goes off and you got to, okay, I'll be right back. Or now you go to the next one and the next one that's even worse than that one. Yeah. And I mean, we have to do, and like OG said too, in that medical field, sometimes you just to carry out because you were human, and it's very difficult.
That's why cops and nurses get along.
Oh yeah, because we're both a little demented.
Exactly. Yeah.
Strange.
And then into the early '80s, before when the suburb departments, Roseville, East Detroit, the smaller St. Clair Shores, if they had a shooting, a homicide, or something like that, they would always call in the state police evidence people, right? Just like your NCIS TV shows and the process crime scenes. Well, in the mid 80s, cities the economy began to boom. So they had more money. So they started sending officers. And I was one of those officers who went to the training to become an evidence technician.
Oh, cool.
And so on the midnight shift, I was one of two evidence technicians. So anytime there was a major crime, a major incident, a fatal car crash, stabbing, shootings, I got called there, whether it was my call or not, because I had to pick and collect up the evidence, pick up the pieces of hair, take blood samples and draw the pictures. And so, for me, I even had to do that more. And then if a death occurred because of it, I had to follow up with the chain of evidence by going to the morgue and go through the autopsies. So in my day, I have been through hundreds, of autopsies because of my job.
Oh my! I still remember when I in Detroit, the old morgue, and where was it?
At the School of Medicine.
Yes,
Wayne State School of Medicine.
So old, before, not the nice new one now, but I remember going in there and it was unbelievable. I mean, I walk in and there was this big room with just bodies just laying all over the place, laying in pans all over. And I'm just like, and then that lovely smell.
Oof.
Yeah.
That lovely aroma.
Formaldehyde.
And I remember some of the seasoned veterans when before we'd walk in, they were grabbing like gum or mints. And then
Vicks Vapor Rub, putting Vicks up.
Yes. I remember sitting there and I'm looking over at him, and all of a sudden he goes, hey, V-Man, Vital. He goes, V-Man, hold on a minute, man. And he goes, I've been doing this 25 years. He goes, still can't get used to it. And I just started, and there was the Vicks and a little, and I was just like, I'm looking at him. He kind of looked at me because he realized, he goes, trust me.
Know.
Yeah.
Man, we went back there, but I remember you tried to, it's like an out of body experience for people who have never seen what you see on TV is not what you see in person.
No.
And I remember walking in there, and this one still gets to me. It wasn't my case. We were involved in the shooting. We went to the scene. They end up going to the morgue. So we go there to process evidence. And I walk in, I look over on this pan, and there was this, I think, 10-year-old, 11-year-old little boy laying there with his Air Jordans on, his jeans on, his windbreaker. It was a beautiful fall day. And laying there, looked like he was sound asleep, peaceful as can be. And I walk up and I'm just staring at him. And he had like a little hole here and a trickle of blood running down, 22, right into the side of the head, took him out. And that was it. But to this day, I still think of that little kid. Yeah. And yeah, it's just
children are the toughest. They, you know,
man,
that's not the way life is supposed to be, you know, and that's what gets you the worst. Yep, the children.
And as a parent, Keith, you know, I don't have any children, but you know, my nieces, nephews, and all that. I remember going to some of these scenes and just seeing these little kids, and it was just unbelievable. You got something?
Well, actually, I want, with all the accidents and the deaths that you saw, do you think at least 50% or more had something to do with either alcohol or drugs?
Yes.
Or maybe even 90%. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, very high percentage. Yeah, okay. Very high percentage.
Man,
and that's in actuality, that's because I had 21 years of midnights, and then when I was promoted and I was moved into the detective bureau, my last 5 years of my career, you know, prosecuting cases for OWI seconds and thirds, right, which were more state charges versus the ordinances, you know, in your local district court. Just before I was ready to retire, that's when the court administrator and one of the judges asked me, would you want to teach the alcohol education program because of my knowledge and having, you know, so much information about being a part of both the street officer and the detective working with prosecutors and how they prosecute these crimes.
Yeah, I mean, you saw, especially working midnights, and as soon as you said that about you know, the Roseville area, the first thing that popped in my mind was the Ritz and all that. Then we had Brandy's, which was down on 9 Mile there, and all the bars are in that local area. And yeah, man. But then we were talking about how we would have our shift parties, like you said. I remember working 13 on Woodward and Hancock. We'd get done working midnights. We would, now it's no longer going to be there. They're tearing down our watering hole. It used to be, it's still there now, but the Victory Inn, road, of, I mean, we would meet up with Warren. We would meet up with Warren PD, Warren Fire, St. Clair. It was like our, so we're sitting there. We get there at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. You know, as soon as we get off shift, we're sitting there, and as people are walking in, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning, here we are. We're already, you know, hooting and hollering, and I'm sitting there, and here's all these people that are coming in, and now, I mean, there might be 15 of us sitting at a table, and we're loud, and well, I mean, and so people are like, I remember someone, waitress came over, and she, those tables over there are saying you guys are pretty loud, and jokingly said that if you don't quiet down, they're going to call the police. And the waitress said they're all cops over there. Like,
yeah, good luck with that.
Good luck. Oh my God. But
expand the party. But
I mean, just so what the stuff that you said, because you're still doing the alcohol awareness classes. So what is that like when someone comes in, like first offense, second offense, or is that like right off the get from your first hit? Is this something that's mandated by
this is mandated through their probation. Your first offense of the OWI in their probationary packet, you know, they have it, they're usually put on probation for a year. And so if it's first offense, then they usually attend my 4-hour class. A second offense, they may have to go to Mothers Against Drunk Drivers 6-hour class and partake in that. So In fact, I just had the class on this past Saturday, just a couple of days ago, and I had 15 in it. So for me, that was a little bit. It's now the numbers have picked up again, which sad to say they have. I have felt over the years that numbers have dropped a little bit because of Lyft and because of Uber.
Uber, yes.
Where many years ago they only had Shamrock Cab, right? And up in Roseville, the Shamrock Cab was there, and so most people they didn't want to sit in the back seat of a Shamrock Cab. They'd probably catch a disease from
I
sitting.
was gonna say,
I don't want to pick on them, but they weren't really clean, right? So an Uber driver, that's his own vehicle, so he's going to keep it clean and it's going to look nice, type of thing, right?
Yep.
And so, anyways, recently again, and there's stresses. As you know, everybody goes through all these different stresses, through surgeries, through divorce, loss of a loved one, cancer, and we just don't know how our bodies will necessarily respond. And we use many things to cover pain, whether it's alcohol, whether it's pills, food. Look at how Biggest Loser was one of the, big shows back in the day for many years, where as you watch that show, 3-4 weeks into it, the person would finally reveal what tragic or major event affected them, and they used food to cover it. Whether it was a molestation, the loss of their parent at a very young age. And so helping to uncover some of that, to help them maybe see where they're going, is part of what I do. I try to explain the process to them. And of course, I know we've already talked about Haiti, but helping others, being focused on others, doing things for others is something that, for me, I feel helps redirect that person from that hurt, because then they see that there's a lot of people out there that are worse off than them.
Oh,
right?
Without a doubt. Yeah. And we're definitely, talking about Haiti. We're going to dive into that a little bit more as far as what you're doing. But the thing is too, with My Fight or War, we deal with everything. Like I said, when I started this amazing family, it was like, listen, we are here for people who are battling any type of addiction or mental health issues, because when you think of or people in general who have not had it personally or in their lives with family or friends, as soon as you hear the word addiction, it's like, well, drugs, alcohol, and that's it. But you just nailed it too, man. There's so many other different things out there that are involved, mental health issues. And like, I used to watch that show all the time, The Biggest Loser, and the physical part was happening because of a mental and emotional situation that occurred. And people sometimes just look at things at the face value, and it's just like, well, they're just big because they just eat or whatever. Well, there's a reason behind it. Just like with doing drugs, some people are like, well, they're just assholes. That's why they do drugs. Well, some of them people are. Been there, done that. But others are because of an event that was so tragic, and maybe not to someone else, but to that person, that the only way to numb that feeling is by artificial stimulation, with whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be. But that's why I always say with us too, it doesn't matter what it is as far as your addiction and what it may be, mental health issues, or it doesn't need a title or a diagnosis to be something that's ruining your day. We all have bad days just because we had a bad day, but just to have an outlet to go and talk, and people are like, well, I don't want to go see a shrink. We're not saying to, but just talk to family, friends, and then family and friends who don't want to get involved because they're like, oh, well, that's personal, or the one I didn't like was I had this couple that said, well, we thought that there was something going on. We had a feeling, but we didn't want to say anything though. We didn't want to intrude. I was like, well, okay. And then I had another lady. It said her son and the daughter-in-law, he had an issue with alcohol. She had an issue with heroin. And when she was talking to me about it, you could feel this like embarrassment. She's like, they have an issue with drugs and alcohol. She was like looking around, so no, it hurt her. And I
Right.
was like, oh, that's terrible. She goes, but we don't talk about it. And I go, well, you need to talk about it. Well, we don't talk about outside these four walls. And it's just, by not talking about it, we're not going to make things worse. I was really, I said, by not talking about it, you just put another drink in your son's hand. By not talking about it, you just put a needle in your daughter-in-law's arm. So the next time we talk about it, we'll be at their funerals.
Yeah.
And I remember she got upset, and I was like, it's reality. I mean, drugs and alcohol, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, your location, your age, your financial status. And, you see it all the time too. With the laws now, with the drinking and driving, I've been out of the law enforcement for a while now. So how is that as far as for the people who don't know that the laws, what if someone goes out there and they get hit? I can't remember what the numbers are nowadays for impaired to operating under the influence. What are the penalties for something like that now, from the least to the worst?
So normally when someone is arrested, they're charged with the OWI, operating while intoxicated. If it's your first offense, our court system usually will plea bargain it down to operating while impaired, driving while impaired, or whatever it was. It could be driving while intoxicated versus operating while impaired. And so, and that's usually your first offense. Second offense, it starts to get a little tougher. Some judges, even out in Oakland County, some of the judges there may lock you up for 30 days, maybe on weekends for a total for up to 30 days.
And that's second offense.
Second offense. And then third offense is a felony. Now, one of the changes in the laws here in Michigan a handful of years ago was to be charged with a felony in Michigan, you had to have 3 convictions in a 10-year period. Okay. Well, back in the day, the attorneys that were pretty good would adjourn. If you got popped for drunk driving third, they would keep adjourning your case until that exceeded that 10-year time frame.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And then they can go back and say, okay, now we'll plead to drunk driving second or something like that. So it wouldn't involve prison time. Well, then it was the Michigan Supreme Court and that panel. They put the kibosh on that. Unfortunately, there was it was actually the Warren court administrator who made news for being arrested for his 14th time with drunk driving.
14.
And then, and then as that information came out and they began to see how attorneys, pushed it, and then the plea bargains would take place. Then the Michigan Supreme Court panel said, now your drunk driving case must be adjudicated within 77 days. If your case is not adjudicated within 77 days, the judge of that court must provide a written document as to why and explain what happened to make it go farther than that 77 days. Wow. So now in Michigan, and of course now it's lifetime. Like I said, before it used to be 3 and 10 years. Mm-hmm. Now, if you were popped back in 1975, okay, and then you were popped in 1990, and then now in 2015, Michigan looks at that as your third offense, and they will go after you for the felony. Now, I know they're trying to stop it. Mothers Against Drunk Drivers has been a very strong political action committee, right, to make sure that people are not getting away with, seriously hurting people and killing people in car crashes. In reality, with 3 drinking and driving offenses over that time frame, would somebody actually do prison time? Probably not. But they would still charge. And this is one of the things, even before I left the city of Roseville, I had a couple cases where some gentlemen were in their late 50s and they got hit on their third offense. They got popped twice when they were in their 20s in college, right? Being young and drinking. Now, 35 years later, they got hit. And so I had a chat with the Macomb County prosecutor back then. And I said, why are you charging him with a felony? And it's his third offense. And my point was, well, as a prosecutor, I feel you're actually punishing. You've become the judge and the jury on this, and you're punishing that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you look at it, I said, hey, sir, it's a felony. His bond, is it going to be higher or lower because it's a felony? Well, he goes, well, yeah, his bond's going to be higher because attorneys to represent him is a felony. And I go, yes. And is an attorney going to charge him more money for a felony where he could go to prison versus a misdemeanor where he'll do, 1 night in jail and then have to do his fines and costs? And then he did. He sort of looked at me and goes, okay, I see what you're saying. I go, I get it. The people who have the issue and you want to charge, charge. But someone who's gone 30 something years and here in Michigan, where it stays on your driving record forever now, I just didn't think it was fair. And so at least I think I made an impact bringing up that to him, right? Making him think about, yes, we're actually punishing that person even before it gets to court. It's a financial punishment, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is too is I know there were a lot of changes. Isn't it also if you get like two impaired in a short amount, like within so many months, doesn't it go up to the greater?
It can, absolutely, because you still violated it and you had the impaired. So, and then the other thing, of course, they added to it was super drunk.
I was just going to bring that up, Keith. I know a person who had a drunk driving. It actually caused an accident, and it was the first offense, but it was drinking. It was involved in the accident, and it occurred, and people were injured, and but first offense and all that, and they got the individual for impaired. Yeah, and even though it was classified with the amount of alcohol, what their blue, they were over, but it was first time, like you said, plea bargain down. Yeah, but unfortunately, got another accident within, I think it was less than 6 months later, and they explained if you get another ticket, that first one is going to be lifted to a felony as well as the next one. So that's still the case, right? So
right. I mean, judges can make those decisions, and as long as it's agreed upon with the defense attorney, I guess, and the defendant, they would be able, right, to do that and say, hey, we had an agreement here. I'm giving you this break, but you violate the rules of the condition, because basically it's like a condition of bond, and if you violate it, right, all the gloves are off, and now you're back to the original stuff type of thing. Yeah.
What is somebody looking at if, let's say, it was their first offense and they get that first pop, then they get the break, and all of a sudden they screw up again? Because I know you said in some cases, like Oakland County, second offense, you might spend 30 days. Yes. If you get 2 felonies in 6 months causing injury, what would be, the amount of time someone would receive in that case?
I would suppose, of course, all the facts have to be brought in, the injuries and the severity of that. But an OWI accident causing injury is a 15-year felony. And so up to that 15-year time frame where and of course, prosecutors have these charts, and they look at all the parts of that case and they add points to it in that chart. It was in an accident. How bad was the accident? Okay, a person was hurt. How certain was it? Broken leg? Was it someone was paralyzed? Was there death involved? And so they add up this point system, and then this chart gives them the recommendation of what they want to present to the judge. So there's a lot of things in there that can change and the judge never has to listen to it. He can always make his own decision, but it's a recommendation to the judge of what the penalties would be.
Gotcha.
And so when you get to the OWI third, causing death, that's where Michigan became probably the lead state, maybe 12, 14 years ago, and began to charge people with second-degree murder. You were talking earlier about intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they pushed it to our legislative body saying a person, whether sitting at the bar stool or your kitchen table, wherever you're at, and you're drinking, you intended to consume the alcohol. You go out and you get into your car, put the key in the ignition. Of course, today, a lot of times you just push a button. But anyways, you put the key in the ignition and start that car. That was your intent to do that. Now, when you drove away, it wasn't your intent to kill somebody, but this is second-degree murder, which it's a lesser effect of first degree, which is premeditated, right? So there is intent involved when it comes to getting behind the wheel of a car today and driving. And so Michigan set precedent many years ago. And one more thing I wanted to add to this. In the laws today, you consume alcohol, and it's like, okay, I just got a few miles and I can make it home. And you're on your way home. You don't run the red light. The other person does. And you get involved in a serious crash. If that person dies because of their negligence, you will be charged with second-degree murder.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
Forgot about that. Yes. I actually know of something that happened like that. Keith, I know that with your experience, sometimes as officers, people will ask different questions. A good family member of ours here has a question. It says, if you have a chauffeur's license and you get pulled over on first offense, drunk driving, is your chauffeur's license revoked?
You could, yes, you could lose it. You could lose it for maybe 6 months.
Okay.
So again, the defense attorney that you get, the arguments that he presents, that all weighs a little bit on the judge and the decision that's going to be made. Mm-hmm. Your truck drivers, and of course, your nurses. This is where it's a misdemeanor, and truck drivers and nurses can lose their license for a misdemeanor charge.
I have someone here now, Donald. I have a CDL. First offense is 1 year suspension automatic.
Yes, there you go.
CDL. Yeah. And you know what? I didn't even think about that, Keith. I have a friend who's also a nurse and was having some issues and did get popped. And first thing they told him, do you realize that you could lose your nursing license?
Yeah.
And he said, it was a driving offense. I mean, just didn't even think about that, but you're right. And like I said, Donald, first offense, 1 year automatic suspension with that. Yes. We've got also Donald said, I know a kid crashed his girlfriend's car, suspended his license for 5 years. So again, Keith, it's going to depend on the county, depend on the circumstances. It's nothing's like a cookie cutter.
Correct. And so a lot of that stuff is looked at and when decisions are made, but the seriousness still it's pretty tough. And to get a drinking violation removed from your record, to get it expunged, is very, very difficult. It's easier to get a murder charge expunged off your record than it is a drinking and driving. And so I know, you know what? I've appreciated what MADD has done over the years in holding us accountable. But I think, as we all know, we all make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And to put those very tough restrictions on people who are career orientated and make a mistake, I just think we need to back off on that a little bit because it's tough.
It is. And it's, sometimes we get looked at and almost being a hypocrite, because I'll say the same thing. And
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, Manny, so you're this, but you're talking out of both sides of your mouth." No, I'm not. I'm just saying, don't throw everyone in the same pot. You're going to
Yes.
get the one who is out there getting. I mean, their rap sheet is just page after
Mhm.
page, and you're going to get the other one, as you said, is someone who. People are going to say, well, we all made mistakes. Well, yeah, there's a difference between making a mistake every other month and then making a
Yeah.
mistake 30 years
Exactly.
later. So,
Yes. Yep.
the same Donald here said he thinks Maine has in 7 years, it may come off your record in 7 years in Maine. So again, depending on where you live,
Right.
has a lot to
But
do.
you say come off the record. It may come off your driving record, but it's your criminal record that it has to come off, right? So here in Michigan, if you get a speeding ticket, a red light ticket, those points stay on your record for 2 years. The violation shows up on your driving record, like when your insurance company checks you out to renew your license or to your insurance, that stays on your record for 7.
Oof.
But a drinking violation in Michigan stays on your driving record for 10 years. And that is one of the things that has really irked me in regards to the strength of our political action committees with insurance, because the insurance company owns you pretty much for 10 years. And so if you're paying roughly $1,500 a year, basically for standard insurance on a car, and you get popped, you're going to be paying probably $4,500. Well, times that by 10, that's $45,000 of your hard-earned money that you've had to pay for insurance, along with, of course, your fines and costs and attorney fees, whatever. That's why everybody says it can cost you $60,000 very easily for a drunk driving conviction.
Man, you hear that all the time when
Yeah.
some of these cases, and it, you hear some of the cases where compared. That's why there is no cookie cutter like this is the same as this one. No,
No.
you'll have some. In fact, and like you said, MAD and all these organizations out there that do amazing things. But you have to be careful not to treat every single case the exact same way. And I was talking to a friend of mine. This was years ago. And we were talking about exactly that, because he was going to classes, and part of it, he had to do some type of volunteer work with MAD. And he actually really enjoyed it. It was an eye opener for him. He got a lot out of it. But he said that he was there with some guy. He said the guy was just, he was a very funny individual. He goes, yeah, sometimes these organizations are way over the top. And he goes, so I decided to start my own. And it's an old joke that's been around. So instead of MAD, he came up with Damn Drunks Against Mad Mothers. And it's just like, okay. And, but then again, there goes to that black humor where you kind of just say things.
Yeah.
But
okay, there's a question about how much you blow into the
breathalyzer.
The breathalyzer,
where
yeah.
are we at
Because
here?
saying that the limit in
oh,
Maine,
here it is.
In Maine, it's 0.08.
What is the limit of Detroit? Maine is 0.08.
Okay, so it is nationwide. The blood alcohol concentration for drinking and driving is 0.08.
Oh, okay.
Michigan used to be a 0.10 state. There was 13 of us that were 0.10. Okay, probably over 15 years ago, I think it is, close to that. And at that time, I don't know if you remember this one, Manny, because you were probably still working. So there was a gentleman arrested in Grosse Pointe. He fell asleep at a traffic light and put the car in park, and he was arrested by the Grosse Pointe police. I'm not sure what city, park, or farms, whatever it was. So he began to fight that charge. And through his fight through the courts, a lot of studies came out through Indiana University about the differences between 0.08 and 0.10. And like I said, Michigan was one of 13 states. Well, the federal government got involved, like, of course, they always do. And they started to twist arms and saying, listen, we want all our states to be the same. And so we want everybody to go down to 0.08. There's enough documentation that that amount of alcohol does affect your central nervous system. And of course, they twisted arms and said, okay, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it, but you're not going to get funding for road and bridge repairs like Michigan doesn't need that, right? So in the meantime, as this guy's case carried through, it went to the Michigan Supreme Court. His attorney argued and won this case because his vehicle was in park. He wasn't, remember it used to be OUIL, operating under the influence of intoxicating liquor?
Uh-huh.
He won that case because he was an operator. It was in park. Well, when all these states, when all these states changed it to DWI, they changed the definition of the driving operator to anybody who had possession of the keys, could put the keys in the ignition and start the car, fell asleep behind the wheel. It didn't matter. So they opened up that definition and brought down the blood alcohol concentration to 0.08. So yes, now everybody is at 0.08 across the United States.
I do remember how
Mhm.
I didn't have the ability to drive drunk because the vehicle was not in. Man, I
Yeah.
tell you, these lawyers, boy,
Yep.
you know what? When you agree or not agree, but I tell you what, for that guy right there, the person who hired him, man, that's it's just
Yeah.
when,
In another area, just real quick, is that to really get people to understand, I know that our legislative body puts numbers because of the testing involved, right? And all the scientific information to say, okay, at this number, the average person, if they consume X amount of alcohol, will hit 0.08 in their ability to operate.
oh yeah,
Okay. But we all know alcohol is a drug. It affects everybody differently. How many people have you seen, like in a New Year's Eve party, have one drink and walk around completely wasted? And so in my career, even when the law was 0.10, I had 2 convictions of someone driving drunk at 0.06 because of how the alcohol affected their ability to operate the vehicle. So the numbers are a guide, right?
exactly.
It's the evidence that is presented to determine whether or not they fell into that charge.
Because here, like you said, with the people's tolerance, I mean, you get
Yes.
someone who is a career veteran drinker out there who is just pounding these beers and having 10, 12, 14, 16 beers, and then throwing
That's what I
shot
agree.
after shot on after that, and then get in their car and drive straight as an arrow.
Yes.
Because but a lot of these individuals as well,
Yeah.
is it, their size, their weight, their body mass,
Yes. Yeah.
underlying medical conditions,
Yeah.
other medications that may interact, all these different things really come into play.
Yes.
But you're currently, obviously, you just had your class,
Yeah.
and have you gotten good results from the people that have taken your class? I know some of them it's court ordered, so
Yes.
they're there, and some of them are probably like,
Yes, I do.
Your sign this.
You know what? In fact, this last class I had was one of the best because there were just a lot of questions. And, when they come there, I get it. The arms are folded. They don't want to be there. They're there because they're, in probation, right? They got to go through all the steps of probation. And so they're mad at themselves and they don't want to be there. But I'm going to tell you, this group of 15, they began to open up. They began to ask a lot of questions. And it's nice that I can then connect with them and relate from the law enforcement side what an officer has to go through, right? And how he handles and prepares those elements of that arrest. There's elements in every crime. And he must meet with those elements, right? To then say, I've got enough to arrest you for drunk driving. Because if you don't, then you could be violating someone's 14th Amendment right for an illegal arrest, right? So So that opens up their eyes a little bit, and they really begin to understand. And I love the fact that I can communicate and at least present a decent side from the law enforcement side of what these guys are doing and these gals are doing, and so forth. So, yep.
See, and that's like knowing you all these years, Keith, man, they got a perfect person doing this job because the way that you interact, I've had people over the years, not when they not speak very highly of officers.
Yes.
And it's funny. It's like, I had a guy going off on me one time. I was with my cousin at the bar. I met him up there, and he's sitting there talking to the bartender. And this guy, as soon as I walk up, I could hear him talking with my cousin. A fucking cop. This guy gave me a ticket. And he's just going off on cops. Cops, they're scumbags. This piece of shit. So I'm sitting there. My cousin looks at me, and he's just like, don't say anything about what you do. So I'm sitting there, and he's just going off. And I'm like, oh, someone had a bad day. Oh, this cop, gave me a ticket for. No, I only had like a couple beers. I had open intoxicant. Made me pour out my beer. And he's going on, and he only gave him a ticket. He didn't arrest him, but he's still just going off, and how. And all of a sudden, he goes, something. But just going off. And finally, my cousin said, "Oh, by the way, this is my cousin Manny. I was a Detroit police officer." And this guy's like.
Yeah.
And so then we started talking and just kind of joking around a little bit throughout the night. And he's like, all the interactions have been negatively. Well, a lot of times it's not a positive, situation that we're meeting. And, but when you get to interact with these individuals on a personal level where they don't look at you as the enemy, and you're there. I mean, here it is a Saturday. There's other places you'd rather be with your wife and your family and friends than sitting there. So, I mean, it's just great that you can interact and and make it the situation as pleasant as can be, and a positive outcome, a positive experience. And I know that we talked before about having you come on here. And with these classes, because I know I would love to come to one of your classes and chit chat with have a few minutes to talk with these guys and men and women, on two levels. Here as a former officer, and two, I've sat where you sat. I got arrested.
We'll have to. Well, I'll give you dates or whatever. I know we talked about it in the past, and then. We've both gone through some surgeries.
Oh my God!
Things of that nature.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Keith? Before we finish up here, though, I just noticed, man, I love having you on here. We got to have you on again. But before we, I also was talking on the intro of all the things that you're doing. I mean, as a first responder, you give, and then still with teaching at the academy and teaching, helping with these classes for drunk driving. So, I mean, it's just in your DNA. Tell us about this, what you got going on with your work in Haiti and exactly what you're doing there. So people that may be interested.
So believe it or not, so I became very involved in my church many years ago, and my wife was a youth director, and she wanted to go to Haiti with a bunch of the youth. This is this summer will be 26 years ago, and she came to me and said, I got two other churches that want to take our youth the senior youth to Haiti, and I said no. Here I am. I'm the SWAT guy, and all this stuff. And I go, you don't even have any clue what is going on in that country, do you? Right? She didn't. I paid attention to the news all the time. And I said, no. She goes, yeah, but two of the three children want to go. I go, no, I'm not sending 3/5 of my family to Haiti. Right. And so this was, 1999. And so we've been married. We're going to be 49 years this summer. This was probably the longest 2 weeks that we really fought. And then I finally, I prayed about it. And the big thing is my best friend, who didn't have children at the time, he threw me under the bus and said, I'll go as a male chaperone. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I got to go. So anyways, so I ended up going. And we had 22 high school kids, and we had 8 chaperones, adult chaperones. And it changed my life. Here I thought, I was a good guy and I was doing all the right things and so forth. And I was a coach and serving my community and stuff like that. But man, when I got to Haiti and I saw starvation, you see the commercials on TV where the actor or actress is in, whatever, it's Africa, and flies are flying all around these children's faces and they want you to donate and this and that. And we always had the freedom to just click the channel and change it because you didn't want to accept it. You wanted to move on. But that smell stays with me today. The stench of Haiti. They don't have they just throw garbage on the ground. It's everywhere along the sides of the road. And then they begin to burn the garbage. So you have that smell, the plastics, the rubbers, the tires, right? And so, and then to see the conditions that they lived in with sticks, tin, tarps. Some had cement, small 8-foot by 6-foot cinder block homes and things of that nature. But it changed my life. And the gentleman that I met there, his name was Leonard. He was our driver. And he didn't speak English and I didn't speak Creole. But he found out that I played the trumpet for church and he played the accordion. And so the connection of music really got us talking and having like a translator help us get through that week long and whatever. And I promised him, I said, I'm coming back. I'm going to bring you a saxophone because he wanted to learn how to play the saxophone. And so that promise to him, made me agree to come back again. And it was just a couple of years after that. I mean, we continually went every year. Kim and I started our own 501c organization called Hope for Haiti. And so now in almost 26 years now, I have been to Haiti well over 50 times. I've built over, 3 churches, 2 schools, 2 orphanages, and I've helped a lot of people fix or replace their homes from the earthquake 14 years ago. And so I do food distribution. I do eyeglass ministry. I bring water filters and things of that nature, toiletries, toothpastes, children's shoes. Children grow so fast. They're always looking for flip-flops, and tennis shoes or whatever. So anything and everything that we can haul down there. I now sponsor 3 orphanages that have well over 100 children. So when I go down there, I try to focus on making sure that they get things, bars of soap, right? You have young teenage girls, and then you have, their needs, right? So, you're bringing those things down, the hygienic stuff, right? They need that. They can't just get that stuff. So that's how that started. And it's been a joy. I now have 10 main Haitians that I call them my workers. They are my friends, but they're my workers. And when I come into Haiti, they come and they meet with us and they stay with us. They translate for us. And they help me physically. When I go buy, 7, 8, 10 tons of food to distribute, they're right there. They're helping me haul rice and beans and flour and brown sugar and things of that nature. And so we communicate all the time. I know that the Port-au-Prince area is very dangerous, but I don't go to Port-au-Prince anymore. That was where I went all the time. And then now I go to Cap Haitian, which is up in one of the northern peninsulas. So it's still Haiti, but the violence is not like it is down in Port-au-Prince. And, we have, of course, Mitch Album here in the Detroit area that he goes back and forth a lot. And he has actually moved his orphanage because of the gang violence where he was at, because he was right in the center of Port-au-Prince also. So that's how it sort of got started. And then like at my church, my pastor came to me. I've had a couple people where the pastor came to me and these individuals were on their 3rd OWI. And he directed them to come see me. And so I wrote letters to the Macomb County Prosecutor's probation department and said that, because of course they always have to do community service. And I explained who I was and that I was a law enforcement officer and I had my own organization. And they allowed them to leave the state because it was a felony. They allowed them to leave the state and come help me, like you said, to come and help do some type of service. And it changed their lives. One of those young men is now my vice president of Haiti. He has been clean for over 13 years.
Yay.
If it's up to you. I mean, if you want to mention his name, God bless him. I don't know if you want to do that.
His name is Chad Sweezy. And
he needs to be part of our family.
He is a chef. And he's got, a family with 2 kids. His kids are very involved. They're younger, not I think the boy is 11 or 12, but anyways, very involved in athletics with the kids and so forth. But here he was in high school. He was a high school football player in the city of Roseville, at the high school level. And here he is, not even 21, and he's on his 3rd OWI offense, facing prison as a 20-year-old. Because that's what the football players did. They went to houses after practices or after the games and they drank because mom and dads went up to the cottages over the weekends, right? That's Michigan is one of the things, right? Parents go up north, and then they leave their teenage kids behind. And so, and that's just amazing how that has worked and changed my life and opened up my eyes. And I've continued to grow more and more because of it.
And changing other lives as well. Yeah. And I tell you, Keith, man, reach out to, I'm sorry, was it Chad?
Chad Sweezy.
Reach out to him, give him our information.
I will.
If that way he could share his story, not only about himself and his family and what he's accomplished, but also his view on what he's doing for you and as well as all the other people, because that's just amazing. And it just goes to show that here, if you take everybody and you put them under that same, blanket of penalties and guilt as everything that happens, this may have never been a chance for this young man at that time to get this opportunity. Now here he is doing all these amazing. I tell you, Keith, I've known you, like I said, quite a while, and some of the more in-depth things here. I've always loved you, man. I mean, just the things that you've done and accomplished, but this other stuff, finding out more details is, I tell you what, I mean, the world is definitely a better place because of you and your wife and your organization and the things that you're doing. So God bless you, man.
Well, thank you. And it is, I've been blessed. And that's how, when you want to work through things, right? We take on the hurts and the pains and the poor, pitiful me stuff. But when you really, it could be just as simple as going into Detroit to a soup kitchen, or even the McCrest here in Macomb County, helping homeless.
We do that.
It doesn't matter where it's at. You go and you meet with these people and you begin to talk to them, and you begin to realize, wow, there's a lot of people out here with the same struggles I have. And when you begin to help others, it takes away from that pain and that grief. It's not immediate. It takes time, right? Yes. We all have to work hard at it. And it changes your life.
Yeah, I tell you, you've got a bunch of people here who have been chiming in. Donald, thank you, and thanking you and your wife for what you're doing. Heidi, as well as all the others in here. We've got John.
There's a lot of love here for you.
Well, thank you, man. And I'll bring this, and I appreciate it. So there's a guy at the gym. I'm not going to mention his name. He was a defense attorney, so I know him well because I have been on the stand why he has questioned me, and I've never lost a case to him, right? And so he's older now; he's retired, and we're talking. And Haiti came up, and he was like, "Man, that Haiti is a hellhole. I don't. They should just put a fence around it. Why do you do that? Why do you go there?" And it's like, dude. They are people. There's children there. They have a right, just like we do, right? To at least have, to be safe, to feel safe, right? To be able to go work and have a job and things of that nature. But he was like, "Oh, you'd never catch me going there," because I told him, I got to take you there one day. And I think that'll change your mind.
Oh, I was waiting for you to. I was waiting for the follow up. Like, you're not going to believe this. So
No,
He
he
hasn't
hasn't
gone
yet. Yeah,
Oh,
that was just in the past week. He
Oh.
oh my
brought that
God.
up.
I
Yeah.
tell you, and you
So,
nailed
yep.
it too. As far as people that want to help, sometimes aren't able to go to different lengths and all that. But you just nailed it, McRest. We're part of that with
Yes.
our
Yeah.
church at Our Lady of Hope.
Yeah.
Every year, we'll come in and help with the homeless and help them get to work and do that. And that's only a small part of what goes on. But you nailed it. I go to Father Slash Casey Center all the time,
Mhm.
and down there with the soup kitchen and stuff like that. So you don't have to go to another country. There's help
No.
right here. So, like Keith said, just go out, and
Just help.
it doesn't cost a thing, man. Just to go out and give of yourself, of your
Yeah.
time, like you're doing, and who knows what could happen. Look at you and that individual, that Chad. So
Yeah. Yeah.
doing, whoa, froze again.
Nope.
But again, so Keith, thank you so much, man. I tell you what, you can always tell it's a good show, and all of a sudden you look down and went, whoa. I mean, going overtime, which is fine.
Yeah.
But definitely would love to have you on again and
Yeah.
talk more about things in detail, because I know we've
Yes.
been getting a lot of questions about different legal issues, and now things coming up about your association as well. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely get you on.
And they
Keith.
can find it. It's called Hope for Haiti.
Oh yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Where
And
can they find you?
yes, I have Venmo, and it's Hope for Haiti, and at Hope for Haiti, and it's a white circle with two capital H's in it, because there's another Hope for Haiti down in Florida, and I'm not a big organization. I don't go crazy. 20-something thousand might be a big amount of money in my account, and most of the time, every time I go, I drain that pretty good, because I buy $12,000-$15,000 in food. But it's the donations of the little things, eye
Sure.
drops, toothpaste, and toothbrushes and stuff like that. The $50, send it to Venmo. If those things, those are the big things that keep me going. And,
You know,
and I'm
just like
always
you
looking
said,
for grants.
like you said, that it was just some of the things that really catch your attention is little things
Yep.
that we consider like you said, a bar of soap. But when you
Yeah.
said it, just giving a family a bar of soap, there would be like hitting the lottery. It's like,
Yes.
or all this stuff. It's just really an eye opener. And yeah,
Right.
we all have issues going on in our lives.
Yeah.
We do, and it doesn't make ours any less. But at the same time, it puts things into perspective.
Sure does.
So Keith, thank you so much, man.
Well, I love it. Thank you, man. I'm glad you even thought about it. And to go on another time, I would love to do that. I'll talk to
Yes.
my buddy Chad, and we'll
Please
get
do.
that squared away for you.
Well, again, and what
Yeah.
we'll do is I'm going to get that link from you, and I'll post it on our page for people
Yes.
if they'd like to help out, and we'll be going on as well as that. And you're going to be at the gym tomorrow?
I'm going to be there early morning.
Well, then we'll
See you there.
We'll see you at the
Okay.
gym.
See you in the
You'll-
morning.
You'll have to
Good
be
deal.
signing out. You'll be signing autographs now.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much, man. Give your best to the wife and
Thank
kids
you.
and all that, and we'll see you in the morning.
Very much appreciated,
All
my
right.
friend. God bless you. Thank you.
Take care, brother.
Bye
Love
now.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Man, I tell you,
Very different.
I've known Keith a long time. We used to train at another gym together, and we've swapped some stories. And,
Surgical stories.
I mean, yeah, and some people, when it gets to different issues, we are very close to the vest. There's a lot of times where the only thing, and like I've said it with a lot of us, there's people or there's comments and posts that we have talked about with each other of things that our own family and friends don't know about.
Right.
And we're sharing them amongst ourselves because, as OG always says, it's a safe place, a comfortable
Mhm.
place where we are going to take care of each other.
Right.
And that's what we do. When it comes to first responders, we are a different breed. And I was with EMS and ER a lot longer than with police. But the thing is, a first responder is a first responder, and the
Mhm.
stuff you see, our stuff. And when we tell stories, a lot of times you won't hear first responders sitting there telling stories to a bunch of people unless they are other first responders,
Correct.
because you just won't get it. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully towards people, but some of the things that you see are to the point where I remember
Horrific.
literally. And I remember when I first started with police and EMS, some of the stories, I'd be sitting around with my family and friends. I'd like be sitting around at the bar talking, and it might be, big table full of family friends just sharing some stories. And here I am. And also I look around and I see people close to me just going, like, and then like, oh, bullshit. Like they think I'm lying. Like these aren't real. Like some of the stories, the violence, the stuff you see that are so off the wall, the shootings, the stabbings, the domestic violence, the stuff that that people do to each other that you supposedly love, then the drugs out. I mean, they think you're sensationalizing it. So a lot of times it's just like, you know what, you just don't get it. And so again, not disrespectfully, but you don't, that's what our lives are on a day in, day out basis. And like Keith was saying, man, that when you go to a family and have to let them know that their loved one is no longer here, it's terrible. It's terrible. I've had to do it, and I've had to, not only have I had to do it, I remember a couple times it was a neighbor, elderly couple. God, I can't remember where they were from. Some broken English issues, but very nice couple, lived across the street from my parents. And I remember getting a phone call from my mom, and she said Frank had an issue where he was taken to the hospital. I found out I was at St. John, Maine at the time, and if I could check on him. And I remember going up to ICU, and my friends were doctors, all that I hung out with. So a couple of them were up in the unit, and pulled him aside, said, "Listen, it's a good friend of mine," and they're just like, "He's gone. He's still alive on a vent, but he had a massive stroke and an aneurysm and blew, and there was no brain activity at all." They did check, and then they did a 24-hour repeat just to verify, and there was nothing. And I remember seeing his wife in the waiting room, and as soon as she saw me, man, I just,
she knew.
She saw me, and the relief of just seeing her neighbor and a familiar face in a very scary situation. And I remember having to pull her into a room and having to explain to her that even though he is alive, that there was no brain activity. So yes, he was alive, but only because of this being plugged in. And it was tough. And it was a very hard thing, I think, and that was just one of many. I mean, I've been in this field I started back in 1986 at St. John, Maine. And from there, working ER, working oncology, working Detroit police starting in 94, and then carrying on with EMS through then. So a lot of things that are up here that I wish weren't. And so by no means am I sitting here trying to brag, because any first responder in OG will tell you there's things that we have seen and things that we've had to be part of that were just horrific, that just absolutely terrible. And, and a confined and controlled environment as a hospital can be, it's still, death is death. But when you're out on the street and you see a horrific, just tragic car accident, and you walk up to that scene and you can't tell which way's up and down or front and back on a human being, that's how badly their body has been mutilated because of this. And you have to sit there and process that scene, like Keith was saying. You go to the next scene, you clear from that, you go to your next scene, your next call. And I've said this before, where we had a call, and our call comes from dispatch, who gives us the information that they have. I had me and my partner, we got a call, and it was call was 13 Bravo, respond to such location, man down, unknown reason. That was it. That's all the information that they had. We roll up. People are standing there. We get out. We walk up. Ended up being the person fell, passed out, hit their head, and it was because their sugar dropped because of diabetic reaction. Boom, gave some IV saline, interacted with the bottom line. It was a quick fix. Boom, done, taken care of. Load them up, bring them to the hospital to get checked out, and they were good to go. All of a sudden, the radio goes off. Same thing. Bravo 1 respond, and it was literally the same call. Man down, unknown reason. So we pull up, and now we see police. We see crowds. We see all this. We come flying up and walk up to the scene, look down, and yeah, man down, just like the last call. The last one was laying there because of a diabetic action. That's why that man was down. This one was down because he was shot, I think, 7 or 8 times, stabbed like 15, 16 times, and then beat with a baseball bat. That was our next call. And so, I mean, and that was just, in a
One
series,
after the other.
that
After
was
the other.
working, we either did, like when, especially EMS, I did 8, 12, 16, or 20, or 12, 16, or 24-hour shifts.
Oof.
So I'd get to work like Monday morning at 7 in the morning, and I'd work till Tuesday morning, 7 in the morning. And then you go home, rest, come back at midnight, work a 16-hour shift, go home, go to sleep, go back, work another 24 hours. So you're working 60, 70, 80, 90 hours in a week and seeing that. So, and I'm not asking for any type of, praise or anything like that. But what I'm saying is next time, you see a officer maybe get pulled over, instead of being pissed off and this piece of shit cop just gave me a ticket for going 5 over, just think of those things that officer just saw. And first of all, were you speeding? I mean, were you breaking the law? If so, and then I've heard this many times, I was only going this much over the limit. Okay, so you just admitted you were speeding.
You just confessed.
So you just, basically just confessed that you broke the law. Well, yes, but it's like, oh, so, they're doing a job, and it's not to ruin your day. And a lot of times, just be respectful, man. I mean, I remember me and my partner had a thing that, we had a issue where the drunk driving laws, because here we are getting off work, go into the freaking bars, and we're just getting shit-faced, hammered, or whatever the case may be. And we had people that would get pulled over, and as Keith said, you look at somebody who has got, 10, 12, 14, 16 drinking and driving offenses, accidents, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get someone who has 2 or 3, but like Keith said, 2 when they were in their early 20s, and then not one for 35, 40 years later. But it gets all blanketed into the same thing. Now, people who have lost loved ones due to a drunk driving are going to basically say, you know what,
Put 'em all
Manny,
away.
screw you. I don't care. And you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, how you should or shouldn't feel.
Mm-hmm.
But for myself, being on both sides of that fence, I wore the badge. I arrested people. I was shot at. I was shot. I was stabbed. I did all these things. And then I was on the other side of the fence, riding with a 1% motorcycle club, breaking every single law that you could think of. And drugs, addiction, damn near killed me multiple times. And, it just makes
I mean, you
me,
really have been on both sides of it. Seriously.
I literally have been on many shows and interviews where the interview, they'll call thumbnails, like they'll have the advertisements and the promos. And a lot of mine says, come, join us with Manny Vitale, from lawman to outlaw.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a catchphrase, it's reality. And it gives me a good perspective to look at things in the broader kind of light, instead of looking at it just from this point of view or just that point of view. And it just makes me be a better person. And because trust me, I have worked with people that wore that badge that were some of the freaking disgusting criminals that I've ever known.
Oof.
Then the only reason they weren't in jail is because they were wearing a badge and knew how to work the system up until a point. And there was a few individuals that I went through the academy with, a few individuals that I worked on the street with, who are no longer on the street because they are in prison, because they thought they could work the system, play the system, and beat the system that they were sworn to uphold and protect. And now they're in jail. So no, that's
Karma.
that's it. Let's see. Okay, Amber. Much thanks to first responders. Thank you so much. And you know what? And we're not looking for praise. We're not looking for all that stuff. Thank you. If next time you see an officer, next time you see a nurse, next time you see a doc, you're at the hospital, you're walking around, you see them walking around. You know what? Just hey, you know what? Thank you for what you do. I hope you have a great day. You have no idea how far that can go. And again, I'm saying this, and OG knows from doing it firsthand. You may have just walked across a nurse or someone, a tech, who has just had a terrible case, maybe have lost a patient right before you saw them and is just really having a hard time. And by you just saying, hi, I hope you have a good day, thank you for what you're doing, you just, flip that switch that's why we do it, because we care and it's in our DNA. Heidi wants to know, let's see, Heidi, where are you a nurse and what department?
The
thing is, OG, we're still waiting to see if she's really a nurse.
I don't believe him.
She's been a nurse for about 75, 89
yeah, I've been
years.
a long time.
She
I've
worked,
been a nurse.
her resume. Well, why am I saying it? With OR.
Most of my life in the operating room. I did spend time at entertainment. When I was working in the operating room at Harper, I'd go through the tunnel and work at receiving in the ER for entertainment purposes.
That's where I'd roll in.
Yeah, exactly.
Prisoners
and they had a police detail, actually, DPD police detail, where they would actually have prisoners.
We'd lock them up in the hospital.
But most of my life in surgery, and then trauma surgery, obviously, because I worked at receiving in their OR, was the director of surgery there. But I've been, again, most of my life in surgery. Now, when I was kind of like thinking about retiring, I'm now working a home care, which is so not surgery and so not the ER. This is like no stress. It's wonderful. I get to talk to my patients. They're not screaming, it's just, I've done a lot. Sometime if we ever meet, I'll just give you the whole story, but it's been wonderful. It really has been wonderful. It's really, nursing is the best career ever.
For those who are maybe starting their careers over, for those youngsters who are just starting their career, I can't say enough about first responders. Being one, doing the job. One thing I can say is, if you are going to choose that career, be ready. And I'm not
if you
saying
don't have
that,
a thick skin, you will get one.
I'm not trying to be cocky or arrogant. I'm not trying to do any. I'm just being as real as it can be. Don't do it for like it's when you put on these TV shows and they glamour, the glitz and glamour, and it's the Hollywood version. It's not the Hollywood version. And another thing is, if you're doing it to get rich and that's it, you're going to be in for a long ass career, because what comes along with the job is there's a lot. There's a lot physically, emotionally, spiritually that you are going to deal with, depending on your position in the healthcare field. I can't speak for nursing on that level, except for the ones I've worked with, and they're just amazing. When I first started at St. John, I had no idea about anything with the hospital. I worked there. It was supposed to be a go-between job. I was like 18 years old, and I was transporting patients. And I remember seeing these nurses and stuff, and St. John Hospital is a big ass place, man. And I'm walking around there doing my thing. And what I thought, nurses, they just walked around trying to look all cute, flirt with the doctors, and get all this money and change, bedpans. That's, that's what I thought. I
Well,
did.
that's
I
fair.
didn't work in a hospital. I didn't know what nurses did. This is back in the late 70s, early 80s. One thing led to another, and I start, working there. And I mean, I went from working there transporting patients to all of a sudden working radiation therapy and oncology. From that, taking classes, working the psych wards, which I had a riot. and
Nice.
then also taking classes for ER as a EMT, ERT, and the things you see, but depending on the department, depending on the field you go into, yes, it can be very lucrative. But I'm just letting you know, it's been a while since I was in a rig and working on the street as a first responder. Let's just say I took a big pay cut to become a first responder from where I was. I mean, a big pay cut. And I worked with somebody. Goes to show you it is a choice that will change your life. And sometimes, well, Pat's no longer with us. A good friend of mine who I love dearly. Pat Prone, my brother in the academy, man. We were tight. A bunch of us in the Detroit Police Academy was killed in the line of duty. And we were all sitting there discussing our previous jobs and our income, because some people are like, cops, they make all this money. When I started in 94, like I said, I took about an $8,000 pay cut. Pat took a $15,000 pay cut.
Ouch.
The people that were popping in, the older ones of us, were all taking pay cuts to do the job. It just goes to show you. So if you're doing certain jobs to become rich, that may be one that you may want to reconsider. But I tell you what, rewarding, you'll never find a more rewarding job if it's something that's for you. And you'll know it's for you inside. No one, I mean, we could talk to you about it and, tell you stories. And because I've had people who come on and do like not volunteer, but whatever it was, where they'll take some prep classes and they'll start to do their rotations to do rotation in ER, rotation to see different environments that you're going to be part of, and then I never see them again. They're like, screw this, it's just not for them. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'm really proud to actually be able to work with a lot of these individuals.
And yes, I'm a nurse.
Yes, why? Someone asked if you were.
You're always questioning.
Oh no, OG still a nurse. And the difference, EMT is emergency medical technician. Then you could come on for advanced to be a paramedic, where you're actually pushing drugs. You can become a basic, where you're at a basic rig doing basic life support. We would intubate, and we had the combo tube and stuff that we were able to use. The trumpet we would use to go down the nose sometimes. You would see, look, that's why they call it the trumpet. You just shove this lovely thing right down the nose to try to open an airway. The Cambion tube we would shove right down the throat, which would go, I think there were two ports, one for the esophagus and the trach, in case you went into you went down, because you don't want to go into
you don't want to put
the
fluids
stomach.
in the trach.
You would start pumping air, and all of a sudden you see the stomach going up and down. Not good. So we would have to reposition. And instead of taking the tube out, they had the other tube which went down into the trach. So we would do that. So that's the difference. I was able to do that stuff, but I was not a paramedic, so I was not pushing drugs. I did assist. I'd start IVs and stuff like that after being on a job for a while. Some of the nurses and doctors that got to know you and rotations would have you start IVs and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's the difference. The training and what you're able to do and not do. And the biggest one is, like I said, administering medication, IVs, injections, stuff like that. What else?
Okay, I started typing an answer to
No,
women.
paramedics do give drugs. EMTs cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that, Amber. EMT is a basic. Basic EMTs cannot administer or any type of injections, IV or drugs through injections or through IVs, through ports, through anything like that. But
An answer for Amber because she asked me what my favorite nursing position. Probably surgery because no matter how bad it got, you only had one patient to take care of. Because I worked in the ER and where they just kept coming in and coming in and coming in, and you can't say no because even if they would call the city and say we're shutting our ER down, well, the EMTs would override that and bring the patients to us anyway. So I might have started out with 3 patients, might end up with 12. And these are not just your normal, this is in the emergency room. It's not like your doctor's office.
oh
So
yeah,
that was so very, very chaotic. It almost became it's almost like the patients were it's like almost like the nurses and the doctors versus the patients and not being the helpful people that we want to be and caring for people. It was exciting. I saw a lot. I learned a lot. Oh, honey, I learned a lot.
oh you see,
But in the
everything.
OR, like I said, no matter how bad it gets, you only have one patient and you've got surrounded by the most fabulous staff because you've got a surgeon, you've got a resident, you might have a medical student, you've got a nurse and a surgical tech, you've got the anesthesiologist and the nurse anesthetist. So you've got all these professionals in one room taking care of one patient. And even if the case is a big case and it might be a wild case, it's still only one patient and you can devote all your attention to that one. And that's very good. And surgeons don't take people to surgery if they think they're going to die. Okay, they are there to save lives. They really are.
I've been in, as you guys know, with my background, I've been in the operating room a lot more than most some nurses and doctors. But
Because of the
like she was
surgeries.
saying, doing this, you're in a very controlled
Mhm.
environment.
Mhm.
It is the exact opposite of the ER.
Truly.
ER and OR are 100% opposite.
One's totally
ER
clean,
is
the other is
complete
not.
chaos. It's basically a free for all,
Yeah.
and you try to I mean, the ER you literally make up hallways as different wings. You'll have like
overwhelmed.
1L or ER West, ER East, ER West, like the different rooms and sections. We'll have so much rollover and overflow that you'll have ERB2, which is ER bathroom. What does that mean? That means now this nurse was assigned their rooms, but there's so much overflow that hallway that we all know about where the bathroom is. That is now
That's where their patients
that's
at.
where the patients are. They're out in the hallway by the bathroom. So now they're your EB instead of saying emergency bathrooms.
Amber, yes. He's had over 50 procedures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's including
Carpal tunnel, which is
we're
small.
talking like some scopes. We're talking, which is still a surgical procedure. I've had numerous knee scopes and all that, but like she was talking about the OR and how it's so controlled. My last 2 back surgeries took 7 hours each.
And we could do open heart in 4.
Yeah.
I mean,
4 hours. And so
and
here,
his
7
back
hours.
surgery was-
I was in there having my back done. And then 2 months later, I was in there for another 7 hours having it done again. But like she said, it's, this person, I mean, everything, when I was laying there still awake, I mean, they're still starting to put me under, you'll hear the person doing the call off. Okay. Patient's name. And then someone would say my name and then agreed. And then procedure, someone would say something, other people would back check, service check that one, or this one here, we are in charge of this. Okay, this procedure. So, I mean, you can hear it. Well, all of a sudden, anesthesia, now the candy man there, as he would call himself. All right, man, you can call me the candy man. I'm going to be taking care. You're going to feel no pain. And so there's checks and balances. ER, I mean, we would have people being dragged in, people that would be
pushed out of a
I
car.
was just going to say rolled up, door open, body pushed out,
Car gone.
beeping horn as they're pulling away, body
Mhm.
laying there. And that was just normal. I mean, this is not something that,
It's not
oh my
odd.
God, that
Yeah.
was just, that was
Oh, I
Tuesday.
got another one on the ground. Let's
Yeah,
go
you
get him.
look
Let's get a
outside,
stretcher.
or
Go get him.
you'll be sitting there and you'll hear patients and people in the waiting room screaming, "There's a body laying in the." Yeah, we're getting there. It's. I mean, that was just.
We shouldn't be
part-
laughing, but that's
No,
part
no,
of
and
the,
that's just.
that's part of the mentality that you get after a while. It's not
Yeah.
that we're cold hearted.
So when
It's
you
survival.
think about going into this field, think about these things instead of watching the newer shows that they have out now, like with the Chicago PD and Med and all that. They're
better?
little better, but they're still. Don't forget, it's still Hollywood. But it's definitely better than the old shows of back in the day where it was more Hollywood and stuff. But God bless you, man. We cannot have enough first responders. The burnout rate is huge. It is huge. Doing that job. And,
We've been going on a while. So I'm just going to make one last statement from me anyway. When it comes to nursing, it's the best job on the planet. You can have patients, or you don't have to have patients. You can do teaching, you can be in computers, whatever. And even if you don't have the job that you really want and you're working your way there, you can always pay the rent.
Oh, I tell you what, man, I didn't realize.
Nurses make
you make
a good living.
Good living.
And there's never too many nurses. There's always a shortage.
Yep. And you can, as OG was saying, I had a lot of friends who, were working in nursing, and not only that, but different areas of paramedics, EMTs. And, after a while, your bodies get worn out, man. Especially when you are working the streets, when you're working a rig and you're picking up 350-pound, basically dead weight at times and stuff like that. Your body's taking the toll. But not only that, physically and emotionally, when you see the things that we see, it takes a toll on you. So, if you
on that happy note,
no, if you still, you still don't want to leave your career, you can go into administration. You could go into home care, like OG said. And you know what? I want to see no more than 4 patients a day. I don't want to see anyone that's older than this, younger than. I mean,
you can be a clinic nurse. You can do all kinds of things.
There's so many different avenues that you could go down.
Teaching,
like you look at Keith. Here he is, retired officer.
Retired, and he's still teaching.
Teaching at the academy. Use the skill that you've developed over the years to help the new breed coming up. I mean, teachers, God bless them, man. But when you have instructors who've done the job, you can't get any better experience than that.
Okay, it's been 2 hours. You think maybe we ought to call it a night?
I'm telling you what, I just happened to look down here. Amber, you know what? Today's show was different. I loved it because, first of all, I love Keith. Is
good guy.
Personal friend.
Good guy.
But talking to another first responder, and it wasn't as intense and gory as some of the stories we've had with some of our other guests when we're dealing with addiction and all that. But it just shows you another side. And not only that, but just hearing people's perspective. And so, Amber, thank you so much. And, hopefully you're feeling better. I know you've got a shit ton of stuff going on as well. So, Amber, hopefully you're feeling better. Heidi, God bless you, man. Hopefully you're healing as well with your pelvis injury and everything.
Baby.
So God bless you, man. We are all here sending positive thoughts and prayers your way.
Yes.
Donald, love you, man. Yes, I tell you what, I could
March
go 24th,
Donald.
Yes, we got Donald coming on. I saw John. We got John.
He's on April 14th.
John is coming on April 14th. So looking forward to hearing Donald's story. Looking forward to hearing John's story as well.
Because those 2 Mondays in between, we'll be flying. So we're not going to have a show. We'll be on an airplane.
Yeah, we are going to be heading to New York or heading back. From our other studio. So we'll be doing that. But in the meantime, like Donald and John will be coming on as well. So we will looking forward to that. So again, thank you to Keith and thank you to all you guys, man, for being part of this and your input and just being here. You know, by you guys being here makes this a better place. Of course,
Absolutely.
we need you. You know, we appreciate you and we love you guys. So you have a wonderful evening and
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
happy St. Patrick's Day. And we will see you Wednesday night with Music and Mayhem with my brother, Skylar Ray. And again, we will be on promptly at 7 p.m. ish. Love you guys. Thank you for another great night.
Good
Keep
night.
fighting a good fight.